You're ready to wake up, you're going to wake up. And if you're not ready, you're going to stay pretending that you're just a little, poor little me. And since you're all here and engaged in this sort of inquiry and listening to this sort of lecture, I assume that you're all on the process of waking up. Or else you're teasing yourselves with some kind of flirtation with waking up, which you're not serious about. But I assume maybe you are, not serious but sincere, that you are ready to wake up. So then, when you're in the way of waking up and finding out who you really are, what you do is what the whole universe is doing.
Welcome. This is Brandon with Outside the Box. Today, I had a friend stop in by the name of Miranda. She is a very introspective thinker. You know, she has some very unique perspectives. Some we share, similar perspective. But I don't want to give too much. Without further ado, check out this podcast with Miranda and I. This is called Psychedelic Renaissance. Let's get it. Welcome. Good evening. This is Brandon with Outside the Box. Have a special guest with us today. Have my friend Miranda here with us today.
Hey,
how's it going, Miranda?
Pretty good. How are you?
Really great. You know, we waited for about 20 years for her to get her hair, copper colored, waiting on her today. It's all right, though. It was worth the wait, because she has such a wonderful perspective. So anyways.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you.
How you feeling? What's going on in your space today?
I'm doing good. Any day above ground. You feel me?
I do feel you.
Yeah.
I do feel you. I'm a firm believer that, every day that we get up and we have blood flowing through our veins and we have functionality of our brains and, inhale and exhale,
yeah,
we have another chance to make a difference.
100%.
So I feel you on that. Today's subject that we're going to be speaking on is, today's topic is romance obsolete in 2020/21?
Obsolete? I don't know.
Okay.
Difficult? Hard? Hard to come by. And I don't even think it's kind of like that meme that people are showing. Look at the shit we're calling love these days. You know what I mean? But does anybody really know what romance and love is anymore? It's a good question.
The question is, did we ever to begin with?
This is true. I think we confused etiquette and acting like gentlemen, which isn't fully. I don't know if you guys have seen Mad Men before, but that show was just fucking ruthless. And I was just like, man, thank God I was born when I was born. Because if I was just that happy housewife cooking all day long in the kitchen and then finding out that your husband's screwing his secretaries left and right, that must be pretty nerve-wracking.
I'm sure.
Yeah, so I don't really imagine that was the romance that people thought that they were getting. Do you know what I mean? Especially now.
And that's the reason why I say, did we ever? Because, when I look back at like my grandparents and, the generations of yesteryears, they stayed together out of obligation in a way, like
100%.
Not in almost in a way like not they didn't choose each other.
Yeah.
And religion is so many different factors that played into it. The shame of the community, or the family or whatever.
Yeah. And
there was so many people who stayed in marriages and stayed in relationships that end up feeling unfulfilled in their lives.
100%.
And that trickled over into children, and that trickled over. And it's so many. Yes, it
Boy,
goes so deep.
Boy, do I know it. Yeah, it's generational trauma.
Yes, 100%. So that's why I asked the question now, because I think that we're, like you said, it's difficult. Obsolete, it's a very intense word, but I would like to say, yes, it's very challenging at this time.
Yeah.
Well,
in a pandemic.
But why is the question?
Why is it hard? Okay, so I would have to say from my personal experience, and from other people that I've talked to recently, good friends, guys and girls, it's hard to meet people already. Extroverts, introverts, personalities, religion, race. Everything that happened with the 2016 election, I think, really changed people and their dating with politics associated.
Agreed.
And I think that kind of made people go, man, I have to evaluate people with this as well now. So I think that is kind of narrowing everything down already and what people want in a partner, essentially. And then what apps do you go through to do that in a pandemic?
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Do I
Christian mingle?
That's what I'm saying. Plenty of fish. Like, you know, like what is it going to be? So is it going to be like the cowboys only? You know what I mean? Like, am I going to go on Tinder? Am I going to get Bumble? Or am I going to get, what's the other one? I think there's one more.
I wouldn't be able to
that
tell
was like
you.
meant to be deleted. That's their tagline.
TikTok?
The app, yeah. Don't get me started on TikTok. Don't get me started. But yeah, it's like then you choose which app I'm going to go for. And then it's like, okay, then hopefully we have a connection. And do we talk first or do we hang out? Do we meet up on the first date? Like,
but see, the weird thing is each of those apps that you just named, right?
Yeah.
They each have their own frequency of people like that you would deal with on that app. So like, for example, the people
some of
that
them
you
go
would...
to different apps too. I can speak and attest to this with experience. There will be some people on one app that will have some information and then they'll have more
They're
information on
different
another
people
one.
on different apps.
Yes. I was like, shit, dude. Like, can
You're
we
talented.
Can we link 23andMe and Tinder and like all of these together just so
Right.
I can like do a background check?
Right.
Can you link it to your Facebook
I
and
want to do
everything?
it like the credit bureaus, you know?
Yeah, I don't want your Spotify. I don't want to see your music. I want to know like what's your credit score? Are your parents still alive? What's going on with that?
Right. Are we 30 years old still putting middle fingers in our pictures? Like
Yeah.
what are we doing at this point?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I need to get a well-rounded perspective.
100%.
You know, and I say why because, you know, I ask myself that sometimes. You know, what makes it so challenging now to connect with someone organically as opposed to the yesteryears? Like, now let's get outside of an unhealthy partnership, right?
Yeah.
What I look at is we're bombarded with too many options. You know?
Oh, it's like Netflix.
Like you just said,
You
though,
go
you're looking
on-
at one person on 8 different apps.
Yeah. Oh, and then
And you're
everybody
lying
looks
on 8 of
gorgeous
them.
these days. Anybody can be beautiful. It's really hard. Anybody can be attractive these days. Anybody can go and look however they want with these plastic surgeries and everything. So this whole entire looks are deceiving thing, man. Have you ever seen somebody that was gorgeous, man or female? I mean, female or male. And then just been like, man, they are complete trash just after talking to them for 2 minutes, or they have like no soul, and it's just an exterior. You know what I mean? It's
Unfortunately, that's a lot of what happens in this day.
So it's hard. It's tricky. You know, you can't really judge a book by its cover, but you know, as a female, like I see people that are like attractive and it makes me almost want to go away from them. Like it reminds me of when you're in like elementary school and you didn't want to hang out with the popular kids because they get enough attention.
Correct,
you know what I mean?
correct, correct.
You want to hang out with the people that are a little bit less than. you know?
Underdogs always get the most love.
100%. Always. I agree. But yeah, I don't know if we ever had an idea of what romance was, like you said. So to go into this next generation, and I think people just want, because there is this emotional attachment to thinking that your life will just be, that's the end all be all is when you meet somebody.
Yeah, textbook.
Yes. But luckily, I think that we're getting to this point in our lives that with 2020, rather than being in the 60s and the 50s where it was kind of evolving and like the picture perfect life and Leave It to Beaver and Bewitched and all that stuff, we now have, you know, like Oprah started talking about mental health and problems in marriage and stuff like that in the 90s.
Yes.
And now we finally got to the point where we're like, hey, you know what? There's boundaries now with relationships. Let's talk about this. And it's now a widely talked about subject.
Right, more elements are being discovered.
Right.
You know, and it's like I feel like we're in an emotional renaissance period right now where I won't even say not renaissance because that's like a resurgence. I feel like we're rewriting. We're rewriting the novel, you know, for our time because things that worked in our parents' time, it can't apply to our time right now.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people say that this generation is sensitive, and I said, no, I don't think we're sensitive. I think we're just sick of seeing the same stuff go on, and we're not going to participate in it anymore. Like,
I could agree on some part of that. There is some heightened sensitivity at this time.
Oh, for sure.
You know,
for sure.
everything is I'm offended, and you know,
Yeah.
and it's like. At the end of the day,
We could go for years on that one, man. Be offended. Oh my gosh.
I don't think we have enough time for this one, but yes, we can.
Part 2 coming on another day in April.
Part 2 will be coming. Yes, this is not the last time we have you on the show, you know. But yes, you know, we have, like, for example, I love you, baby, but I'm going to use you as an example. My daughter, right?
Yeah.
So she, BC, before COVID, she was running track, right?
Okay.
And we went out to her track meet, and we were all excited for her. And she was, you know, she was a little nervous, but she was out there and she was, you know, getting ready. So she ran. She bombed. She didn't do too well, but she did it. You know, she completed it.
Go her.
Go, Jalea. Go, baby girl.
Honestly, if the losers are the ones that don't try.
And exactly. And I commend her for even trying. But then this is now just on a broader perspective, right? They gave everybody a gold medal.
Yeah.
I didn't agree with that. I feel like she should have gotten a medal. But if you win, that's when, like, because I feel like
they do that now.
Yeah,
really? I thought that was just like some Facebook like heartwarming page.
It's real. It's
Oh, wow.
real. And you see, the thing is, as human beings, we're incentive based. We're incentive based.
Yeah. So what's the incentive to keep going
to
and win?
try hard? What is the incentive to try hard? If I'm going to try harder than you, and I'm going to get the same medal as the person who didn't even try, then why do I need to try?
Yeah.
It's the same thing as the unemployment. I'm not knocking anybody. Everybody's financial situation is different. I'm just speaking on what I'm speaking on.
Yeah.
There are some people right now who, because they make more money to sit at home, they don't want to even look for anything.
Right.
And I'm not, like I said, I'm not judging anybody. I'm just speaking in a perspective of, like, if you have children or whatever the case may be, you have to understand they're always watching you. Mm-hmm. They're always paying attention to you. And if they see that mommy and daddy is okay with, you know, mediocrity, mommy and daddy is okay with not trying harder or reaching for something greater, just sitting and collecting a check, then what incentive or what motivation does that give them in their life for them to excel into things?
The only thing I think that makes an incentive for people, and if they're raised in that conditional aspect of, like, you know, people maintaining mediocrity, I would probably say is the like type A personalities that want to kind of, you know, hate to bring her up again, but like Oprah, you know what I mean? Like, came from nothing, went and became everything, and but changes their situation. And, you know, she was getting raped by her uncle and then ended up getting knocked up by him. And then you're just like, geez, how do people like that turn their life around? And then there's some people that get an addiction or they get horribly into drugs and then their life spirals out and then they're in a mental facility until the rest of their days. Like, some people can choose that adversity and be like, I'm going to strive and keep going. Or there's some people that are like, no, let's just stay here.
You hit the perfect word I was going to ask you. I was going to say, so basically from what I'm hearing is success is a choice.
I think so. I think success is a choice.
So do you not think that some people are inherently born with that fire?
I think people, because I think that's part of a personality trait as well. Like, I think that will to succeed and kind of just keep going kind of deal. But then again, I feel like mental health can kind of influence that as well. You know what I mean? I feel like if you're not in a great place mentally, you've been raised in a certain aspect or a certain home where there's been trauma, you may not respond to stress as well. So if you're under a certain amount of stress, you may not be able to respond as well as somebody else that's never had that stress in their life and can probably handle that under pressure a little bit easier. But I definitely think I don't know, I think it's a combination. I would be ignorant to say that it's one thing.
Right, it can't be one-dimensional.
No, it can't. No, humans are way too complicated for anything to be one-dimensional, let alone probably two. But,
correct.
You know, the combination of where you grew up, how you grew up, financial wise, how your parents raised you, how your parents' relationship was, your parents' education level, your parents' income, experiences, everything. All of that adds up into your experience. And I don't think a lot of parents realize that when they have kids, but all of that kind of translates over, kind of like what we were talking about earlier too. Like, it's all generational. It just keeps getting passed down.
So I think we're hitting on something here. So then, question. So do you ever read like in like medieval times when a guy and a girl were looking to court each other? If you were a queen of, if you were an heir of royalty, right?
Yeah.
Your parents would never allow you to marry a man of the field.
No, somebody below, no.
They wouldn't allow that. And see, when I was young, I used to look at that like, damn, that's so, that's cold or that's like real pompous or something like that. But at
I
this,
love that word, by the way. Pompous.
Appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I try to take down one book a month. Well, just one book.
It's a good one. I'm stealing it.
Yes, but that's what I took from it. And but at this stage in my life, I asked myself, maybe they were onto something, because what you just said, according to that math, is the reason why most people now have a hard time finding synergy. Because your experiences, let's say, because I mean, yes, at a certain point we have to make a choice.
Yes.
We have to choose, okay, this is not what I had in my upbringing, but now I have the power, so now I'm going to make my life this quality.
Yeah.
But it still goes back to that, because like you just said, some people, they could have a great opportunity. I've seen this so many times. People have a great opportunity, but because they lack the self-esteem, they'll figure out a way to sabotage it.
Yeah, they self-sabotage all the time. I do the same thing myself.
I've been guilty as well.
That's why I complimented your daughter for even trying in track. I was the person in
Love
high
you, baby.
school that, yeah, congratulations, girl, go you. Keep going, keep running those miles. But I swear, I was the girl in high school that didn't try out for anything because I was afraid to not make it. And I think, like, it reminds me of that. I'm a movie buff, but Little Miss Sunshine, it's when Alan Arkin is talking to Abigail Breslin, and she's like, I'm a loser. And he's like, no, you know who a loser is? A loser is a person who doesn't even try. And I was like, fuck, man. I've been a loser so much of my life, and like
Didn't
I feel
even
like,
know it.
Yeah, and I feel like that's the only thing you can really say about yourself. No one can really call you a loser. It's when you kind of hold yourself accountable is when you can actually do something about it. But I'm proud of people for trying, because that's not something I was willing to do. I was very like, I'm not good enough. I can't do that. I don't fit here. And I think when you have that kind of mindset, success is really hard. Success is really hard because it's you versus you.
You're like so right and perfectly in the pocket, because that was going to lead to my next thing that I was going to say. We live in a society that preys on low self-esteem.
Yeah.
Like the people who don't feel confident within themselves and don't really think highly of themselves, unfortunately, they don't reach the heights of the ladder.
Okay.
But we also have so many things that we deal with that keeps us in a place that, prevents one from feeling like that prevents one from achieving a high level of self-esteem. Yeah. So I'll give you one example of what I mean, right? Instagram, for example. That's why sometimes I go on social media detox. It's like literally I do.
I need to do that more in my life.
No,
to be completely honest.
Well, he's the one who even sparked the idea, initiated the idea of me even doing that, because I had a conversation. I was just saying, like, right now I don't feel inspired and this, that, and the third. And he was just like, put down the social media for a while. And I thought about it, and you're right, because one of the major problems with Instagram, I'm speaking specifically right now, is that it's a very comparison-based realm. Mm-hmm. Like, let's say you are
like the diet we were talking about, you're consenting to so much information and all of this comparisons of people's highlight reels.
Correct. And let's say you're at a place in your life where you're like, you know what, I know I'm not where I'm supposed to be, but I'm just chilling right now, and I'm okay with chilling right now.
Yeah. You
go on Instagram, though, and you see this guy doing jet skis, jumping off the airplane, and he's feeding dolphins caviar.
In Bali.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then you're like, damn, my life is trash. Like, fuck.
What am I doing?
I gotta go work out. I gotta go get some investments. I gotta get some crypto, and you start going crazy.
Yeah.
As opposed to playing your game. What are your stats? Where are you at right now?
Yeah.
And I keep mind of that all the time. Like literally in my room, I have a board where I keep track of how much money I spend every day, what's on my schedule. Like my whole life is metrics at this point, because I can't afford to let 60 seconds slip away without it being accounted at this time.
I feel you.
Because when you let that 1 minute go, and 2 minutes go, and 3 minutes go, and then a day goes by, and then 6 months go by.
Time is money, man.
Where did 2020 go?
Yeah. Don't even get me started. I was just talking about it with my girl Courtney about how we're already in this after a year and people are like, we're just going to quarantine for a couple weeks. It'll be over soon. Remember that? Jeez.
Right.
The biggest joke.
Right. And then after 6 months, when you have no definitive time of how long this is going to go, that's when it began to get a little challenging for me.
I think there's going to be studies 15 years from now that's going to be like, did you live alone in quarantine?
You may be entitled to compensation.
Yes. Are you suffering from this, and this? You may be really, 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 really lonely.
Right, though. No, seriously.
I lived alone, and I have a thyroid disease. And when we didn't know what was going on, when they said immune compromised, I was like, well, I have an immune disorder. I can't go out then. So I just was calling out of work, not going to work, not going out, not getting groceries. Out of fear. And then that was like a good 2 months. Didn't leave the apartment. Straight up did not leave my apartment. Didn't even go outside.
What type of emotional decline did you experience?
Well, I was sent to a treatment center in high school that dealt with a lot of isolation and silence, and you couldn't look at people in the eyes. And so you would have to pass a note if you had to use the restroom or something with your. Don't even get me started. That's another day for you as well.
Let me find out you Matilda and you went to. I'm just joking.
I was sent away from Mrs. Peter Grimm's.
You got away from the church bull.
Yeah, dude, it felt like the Salem witch trials. But I felt like I was almost being punished by being alone again, and mentally, I felt like, God, what did I do wrong? You know what I mean? Is something wrong with me? And it was weird. I felt like I was just everything that they tell you is bad for you, binging shows, staying home alone, not talking to people.
Doing it all.
Not leaving your apartment, not calling people, not talking to people, staying on your phone constantly, though. Everything that was bad for me, I was doing in mass doses just for 2 months. And it's just sickening, gross.
At some point, did you feel like you were off-centered? Did you feel like...
Oh, yeah.
You were looking at a shell of yourself at that point?
Oh, yeah. I had a few mental... Luckily, I have one girl. I'm going to shout out Shy. Do you remember Shy from Reef Dispensaries? I love her. She would call me and FaceTime me every single day, and she would FaceTime me and just to see each other's face. And
shout out you, Shy.
I know.
Real friend stuff.
Real friend stuff where she would just be like, are you okay? How you doing today? What's going on? And even just cooking a meal and having a person be right in front of you.
Right.
Can't even tell you what that meant to me.
Listen, I hadn't hugged my mom in over a year.
No way.
Because it was not so much more concern of her bringing anything to me. It was me more so concerned for her, because she's almost. I know you're gonna hear this, Mom, so I ain't gonna mess up your age. She's seasoned. So because she's
vintage,
she's exactly. So she's because she's classic.
Classic.
That's even
better. Classic.
That was slick, right?
Yeah, that was pretty good.
So because she's classic,
10 points.
I got you. So because she's classic, I was just really concerned with, potentially putting her in a position.
Much like everybody else was with their parents.
But
protect your elders.
But I'm so family oriented though. That really took a toll on me.
Did you guys do FaceTime and other stuff?
Yeah, we did, but it wasn't the same.
No.
It's not the same, and it's even worse because she lives 10 minutes away from me.
So it's like doing a long distance relationship.
So it's like a long distance relationship with somebody who lives on another block.
Would you guys do she would come outside your house and you would chill at the window?
Yes, I would go to her porch and I would just sit there.
Mom, it's me. I'm here.
Yeah, but I would just go to her porch and I would just sit down and just talk with her and, just not really be looking at the time or anything, because as human beings, we, there's so many things that we're not taught in school. They teach us all the meaningless things in school, but the things that are most important as far as the makeup of our our chemical makeup, our energetic, properties that are about, like, for example, what I'm getting at is this. Human beings cannot go isolated but for so long.
No.
And this was a huge detriment, not only to just us, but like you said about the studies that are going to happen 15, 20 years from now.
Yeah.
Our children, the kids who are the youth of right now, they are the society of 20 years from now.
Yeah.
What they're dealing with right now is going to manifest itself in very gruesome ways.
I can see that being the case, 100%.
Very gruesome ways.
I'm not fucking with you, and I really think that there will be 15 to 20 years from now, there's going to be studies about the people and the effect of quarantine on people mentally, how it did with people's jobs. Like my roommate, they're now thinking about not going back to work for some people because it just is working better for them. And some people are happier, and the productivity is doing far beyond their expectations.
But then think about the agenda with that, right?
You're just at home.
You're at home working and it's comfortable,
but
then
your mental health is declining because you're not doing the human interaction.
They're turning us into machines.
It's crazy. So I don't really know what I am about. I don't really know how I feel about the whole situation, but I really hope it goes better for these kids because, I mean, you see these stories of kids committing suicide, young, 13 years old, just because they're not hanging out with their friends. It breaks your heart. Like, I know what it did to me in just 2 months of not going out and not seeing.
So imagine a 9-year-old.
Yeah, I'm very dependent and like saying hi to people and talking to strangers. You know what I mean? That's how we got to talking at my job.
Correct. Just exchange, yes.
Yes, this is just the most organic that it could ever be. It's just with other people and with strangers. You know, they owe nothing to you and you owe nothing to them. So when it's a nice organic experience and it's something fresh and kind, it's just like magical. I think that's the true magic with humans. So if you don't get that on a regular basis, and for me, I was very social in school, can't imagine what they're dealing with. Like, especially like what we were saying earlier, if you don't have a good home life, if you're not getting your 3 meals a day, if your parents aren't, emotionally available for you, if your parents aren't beating each other up in the corner in the other room and yelling and screaming constantly. Like my growing up situation was hell. And I can't imagine as long as these kids have been locked up at home, locked up with my parents. Oh, I would have just, oh man, I probably wouldn't be here today. There's no way.
I would have had to find another guest for today's show.
I know.
Damn it, Jesus Christ.
Empty seat right here.
Empty seat. No
Yeah.
Miranda.
It's just I couldn't deal with that. God bless these kids' souls. Like that's a lot of.
And see, you touched on something. Let's actually give them some props because they want to call them weak and all of this. The kids of today, they're weak. But think about it. Think about how strong they actually are.
Yeah.
Because I ask myself all the time, would I be able to do distance learning?
No.
Hell no.
No.
Hell,
I'm so
hell no.
Fidgety. I would not. Be
My attention
okay.
span was so short in school.
Yeah.
Like literally, I used to get in trouble because I couldn't sit in my seat. Like I had to constantly be moving and doing things, and I understand why because I'm just super smart. But hey, I made it, teachers. But I'm just saying. But no, it's just what they're dealing with now is very unique. And I don't even know how to all the way. How to fully process what how they're feeling at this side because they don't know how to fully verbalize yet either. It's not like they can come to you and say, "Hey,
I'm feeling depressed."
Exactly. They can't say that to you yet. So it's like you just have to just try to make it the best that you can for them.
Yeah.
But you also
therapize your kids and see how they evaluate how they're doing just based on their interactions. That's got to be hard. I can't. It also props to parents. I don't know how they're doing it with like teaching their kids everything and having to be like
wear all the hats,
doing it all. Yeah, I couldn't do it. It takes a special person right now to juggle all of this going on with COVID in life right now.
Agreed.
I think it's not even just romance that's suffering at this point. It's everything. Every level. Of every spectrum,
senior
of every
citizens,
chapter.
Single people.
Oh, don't even get me started on the senior citizens. That breaks my heart. Like the people that are already alone and maybe dependent on going to lunch. You know how we're talking about people being social?
Yes.
What do they do? You know what I mean? Like their thing was, hey, I went to go to the grocery store and I picked up my my apple juice today and it was real good. But and I talked to Jimmy on the way out. You know, that's their thing. That's what they do. And then I went to the apricot store and then I talked to Billy Bob there. You know what I mean? And just that's their way of communicating and having a social life is having these errands.
That's their outlet.
Yeah. And I just am like, dude, if they don't have those errands because they're afraid to go out. I remember reading on Twitter about like couples that were, when the hype was real, like last year, this time, where senior citizens weren't wanting to go to the grocery stores because they were just like, I'm too afraid. I mean, there was even, you know, and I hate the news for this, but there was that propaganda, and I hate to call it propaganda because I think COVID is very real and whatnot, but it's just, you have
it's a little trumped up.
Oh, we had this diagram of like a cough and then this person, like this little, you know, person with no details on their bodies. Like
they invoked fear and terror.
They're walking down this aisle and then they cough and then you see these germs, little COVID little germs go into the other aisle.
And then they drew a diagram of what the COVID looks like.
This will be the, you know, the 3 different aisles that the cough is going to now. And you could be over here getting your wheat thins and not even know that you have it. It's just like, oh my God. Like, so no wonder why these poor old people didn't want to go out, didn't want to leave their homes. Somebody did that for an old couple that were just sitting in their car and didn't want to go inside and
that's so rough.
Paid money and were like here and then just had to worry like hopefully she comes back with our food and didn't take the money. Do you know what I mean? Like, can you imagine? And that's when we were in the thick of it and had no idea what was going on. We weren't wearing masks at that time because we didn't know that that's what we needed to cover. It's crazy how this evolved, and we're in this point now where we're mask, double mask, like it's just become
which is just nonsense.
Oh, it's crazy.
It's just nonsense. Like I listened to somebody say it was like, you know, can you smell someone pass gas through their jeans? And it was like, well, yeah. It was like, what makes you think your mask is stopping the virus? And I'm just like, you know, I mean, yeah, it's funny, but you know, when you think about it, we're playing theater right now. You know, like this is not like
it's playing out.
Let me say it like this. Let me be as correct as I possibly can be. Yes, there is something that is existing. However, the severity of it, I feel like, was trumped up. Like they took the severity of it and made it something way more.
It's so weird because some people had such an adverse reaction to it, like Nick Cordero, a Broadway star, 41, no pre-existing conditions, just died. And,
but as he knew of, though.
No, but like nothing that he had. Even when they went through and did like all the tests and everything, he had really nothing wrong with him except
we're dealing with chemical warfare right now.
Yeah, it just makes you wonder what was this because he needed a double lung transplant.
Yeah, we're dealing with chemical warfare right now because and the reason why I say that is because my dad, he was a Vietnam vet.
Okay.
And he told me stories about how they were spraying Agent Orange.
I was just going to say that.
Yes, and he had a friend where he was affected by Agent Orange. And he was afflicted so bad that it caused a reaction inside of his body where he couldn't interact with sunlight.
Yeah.
Like if he went out inside in the daytime, he would literally start to have internal bleeding and things like that.
Yeah.
But he was the only person who had that symptom.
Yeah.
That agent, every person who interacted with that chemical, it had a different effect on them.
Yeah, it's almost like it makes you wonder.
So it's almost like we were sprayed with the same.
Or is this a chemical?
It's a chemical because why is a virus? You're going to have symptoms across the board that are pretty universal.
Right.
You're going to have reactions that are universal. And because it's so unique from case to case to case, it doesn't make sense that it can be only thing. It can only be.
That's what they had in like the little descriptions in the beginning. Like the CDC says that it could also be all these symptoms. You could lose your smell. You could lose your taste. But it could also be a cough. It could also be this. It could also be
allergies.
Flu. It could just be you being tired. It was really weird. All the different
how vague
ways.
It was.
It was so vague.
How vague.
It still really is vague.
Yes.
I still don't think we really even know. I keep saying, when this is over, to people, like, what are you going to do? And then I keep thinking, Miranda, this isn't going to be over for like a hot minute. Like, we're in this for the long haul. Like, the masks are going to be there for a hot minute. I feel like we're just almost out of the thick of it. Like, London just went back on lockdown. Like, that's crazy. Like, and they had vaccines before us. So are you going to vaccine up and then go back into another lockdown?
Don't even get me on the vaccines. Yeah. Please don't, because
we won't go there today.
Yeah, I'm just not, because I just don't want the CDC knocking at the door, Forget you guys. You know, but
So I'm assuming you're not gonna get your vaccine.
I can't trust it.
No, so we think it's the chip.
No, well, I won't say it's the chip. You know, I have a few different reservations. One, you know, I'm a logical person. You know, I'm not a group thinker. I'm an individual sole proprietor thinker. You
100%.
know, I'm going to use what's in my head,
yeah,
not what's in yours. And what makes and doesn't make sense to me is every other vaccine that was created, it had to have this amount of time. Now, I understand that there's all these different scientists around the world working on it. You got the greatest minds in the world, but come on. This is almost like put it like this. I like to use analogies. It's like if I spray something in your face, right? Mm-hmm. And you start, oh my God, I can't breathe. And you go, if you take this, it'll be all over.
Yeah.
But before I give this to you, I need you to bow down and kiss my ring. What is the difference between that is almost in a way, it's like I already had this, I already had the cure before you already was introduced to the disease. And this is a power play because now that I have you by the cojones and you're going to do everything that I tell you to do because now you are living in fear. You don't even want to go out your house. You don't want to interact with your family. You don't want to go to your job anymore. You're going to wait on my check when I send it to you. Now you are completely under my authority. This is a very dangerous time.
So you think it's more of a control tactic?
It's 100% a control thing because we're moving into a dictatorship, a totalitarian kind of state anyway. You know, like everything is like so police and you know it's we're moving into that space. So systematically, we're losing human rights.
Yeah.
You know, our human rights were stripped away from us for a whole year. Then now there's this AR-15 shooting, you know, which, by the way, the Mandalay Bay thing, that just disappeared. We never even spoke about that ever again. Yeah. But, you know, anyways, that was with an AR-15. And all of a sudden, it's all of a sudden, why. Every single time is with the same gun. Every single time.
Yeah.
So now we're moving into a place where, oh, by the way, anybody who is, you know, a Second Amendment, believes in the Second Amendment, I advise you this week to go and get yourself together because the AR-15s is on their way out. You know,
you think so? You think they're finally going to do something about it?
I mean, just based on...
I just am so like, man, they're not going to do shit. It's been so many times. The second that they shot like elementary school kids and then they started saying that was fake, I was like, it's over for us. We're done.
Miranda, we're in a different time now, though.
Yeah,
we're more sheeple than we've ever been before.
Sheeple, yeah.
So now it's much easier to get the people to move in the direction that they want us to now.
Yeah.
Because now it's, okay, I got them to do this. I can get them to do that. I can get them to do this. The moment that if you look at any society that allowed themselves to be disarmed, like, it's game over.
Yeah.
It's game over. That's the only thing that protects your household at this point. You know, like, let's say, for example, I have a son, I got a daughter. You know, when I'm out at the park or something like that and something is to go on, what am I supposed to call the police and wait for the police to get there and hopefully the person's not too far away because they sped off 100 miles? That's not reality. The police are not there to stop problems.
Yeah.
You are there to stop your problem.
Yeah.
You know, and in the moment that we take the authority out of our own hands, like we've done this whole year, the moment we take the authority out of our own hands, we are moving ourselves into an enslavement, into a slavery kind of position.
I feel you.
You know, and it's scary to me, you know, not scary, so to speak, where I'm rendered helpless, but I'm like...
I've lived a very privileged life that I've never had to carry a weapon on me for fear of my life. Because I know that that's something that varies for where you live.
Demographic to demographic.
Yes, it varies. And I think that's for where you live, how you're raised, your race, your orientation, kind of everything, where you went to school, you know, boundaries of where you are in school, like where you live and where you can go to school. And some places are more impoverished than others. And it's so hard to say because my cousin was one of the youngest people that died at the Las Vegas shooting. But it's so odd to me because I can't say that I'm against guns because I know that some people need those guns for their own protection.
Correct.
And then you have people that have illegal guns. And then what do you do if you take away all the legal guns and then you don't have all the people that have them illegally? So it's just, you get into this really weird limbo place of, I'd be ignorant to say what would be the solution at this point.
Right.
Because I don't think anybody really knows what the solution is.
I mean, like you said, it can't be one-dimensional.
No, we're humans.
We're too complex.
Too complex. So I think an answer of just like gun reform, well, exactly how? I think that scares people in the Second Amendment, but I think it scares people, to not have gun reform. So what does that exactly mean? I almost want definitions from the government.
More
as to
finite terminology.
What does that mean?
Right.
What does that mean for people?
Right.
Maybe that won't be so scary.
Well, you didn't hear about the recent, what was it? Biden is trying to get a law passed where lawmakers, they can run in your house without a warrant and confiscate your weapons.
Really?
Yes. That's what they're trying to pass now.
See, it gets so weird because it reminds me of like the Patriot Act when George W. Bush wrote that in 2001 or 2002, I believe. And it was after everything happened with 9/11, and it became, well, we want to make sure that we're protecting America, but at what cost for people's privacy?
Right. At what expense?
At what expense? And it starts getting into this George Orwell 1984 Big Brother who's watching you kind of deal. And
that's heavy, Miranda. Yes.
It gets really tricky. And I imagine myself, I'm not really a Republican or Democrat. I'm very laissez-faire libertarian.
Okay.
You choose what the fuck you're going to do with your life. I'm not
live
going
and
to
let live.
You live. I'm not going to tell you how to live it. So as long as you're
just don't infringe on my thing.
Exactly. Don't infringe on my rights. That's another debate with the guns. You know what I mean? Your right to live, your right to own guns. It's so hard. Like we were saying,
I don't have an issue with the guns. If anything, if I was going to say,
I have an issue with the people that carry the guns.
There we go. I don't have an issue more or less with the guns because the guns don't pick themselves up and shoot themselves.
Right.
However, what I would be looking for, if there is any type of adjustment, make the process of acquiring one a little bit more stringent.
100%.
Make it a little bit more difficult.
I think
you
the
know,
most,
like are you on psychotropic medications right now?
Yes.
Disqualified.
Yes.
When's the last time you had a psych evaluation with it?
100%.
Disqualified. You know what I'm saying? Like
There's
need to
more
have
of a survey to donate blood these days than there is to to get a gun, especially at some of these gun shows. Like that's how
right.
that dude that I don't even want to say his name, the Mandalay Bay shooter got all of his guns. He got like 15 of them at a gun show out here in Nevada. Like
that whole story was so shaky to me that I can't even subscribe to any part of it because none of it makes sense to me.
No. I feel like it's more painful to keep investigating it and trying
than
to
just
figure it out.
Let it be.
Yes. It's almost like the JFK thing. We
correct,
have to accept that it
correct.
was this weird ass fucking thing, and who knows why and who did it and what the motive was and why we did this and how we got into this place. But
like they say, some things are above our pay grade, right?
100%.
You know,
maybe in the next life we'll figure it out.
Maybe, but I've also gotten to a place where I say to myself, some things are better just left unknown.
Yeah, it also makes you wonder how many of these things are really done by people that are mentally just ill and really have no purpose or no reason for it. Like, you think of this guy that went to the massage parlors is the most recent one that I kind of know information about that I could speak on. But I think his excuse was that he had a sex addiction. And it's when you're targeting people of a certain race and of a certain, parlor in Chinatown. Okay, all right, bro. Like, okay.
How did that correlate?
How did we, and these places are, making my sex addiction, come out. Well, then why aren't you shooting your TV for having a subscription to HBO Max and watching HBO after dark? You know what I mean? Like, or why aren't you shooting at your computer for having porn on there and having that accessible to you? So I don't really
not trying to sound mean or anything, but, or maybe why not in the head? Because that's where your thoughts are coming from.
There you go. Well, exactly. I don't mean to trigger warning. But man, like that's what I'm saying. It's not these guns that are doing the problem. Even though I don't really understand the necessary need of an AR-15, that'd be pretty sick to shoot one. Not gonna lie to you. I'll be that person.
They're nice.
I'll say that right now. It must be really cool to shoot one. But at the same time, when we have people shooting them into civilians, the coolness kind of is erased, and I don't know, seems a little bit eradicated.
My question is that why do they use that gun all the time, though?
Because it's so easy and people aren't that great of a shot. Are you kidding me? Have you ever played Battlefront? That's what it reminds me of. And I hate to compare shooting people to shooting things on a game. Very, again, trigger warning, a heavy topic. But it's...
JD, we're going to have to do a lot of editing after this one.
I know, right? But like when you...
Miranda's getting edgy.
Oh, I know. I'm getting into it. But if you have like, you know, if you have me, I'm really not that great of a shot. So you have a gun that's automatic and you move it just a slight bit, you have more of a range to hit something, your target, than you would rather hit nothing. So like, I like Battlefront because it's not shooting actual people, it's shooting droids and
you hear this? You hear this?
Yeah, so...
She's making the distinction.
Yes, so I feel like that's a little bit better than, you know, World of Warfare and Warcraft and all that stuff that's like actually doing people and soldiers. It's too real for me.
Like the Call of Duties and stuff?
Yes, I can't do that stuff. That's too real. So this feels a little bit better, but I feel like those people that have the automatic rifles... It's a better shot. I've seen the most horrid people that have no aim whatsoever be able to make shots with one of those, like just at a range and something like. I've heard.
Are we recording again?
I think it'd be. I need to know more about this, but I read a lot in quarantine, and I'm not even gonna fucking lie to you. I did a lot of mushrooms in quarantine by myself, living alone.
Nice.
Just because it's good. I have PTSD or CPTSD, which is complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And I've read a lot of things about microdosing and doing it in small bits, and I was trying to do it as much as I could, just tiny
What were you
bits.
Listening to that kind of got you interested?
Podcasts. I was listening to a lot of Twitter, a lot of mental. I follow a lot of PTSD accounts, I guess you would say, on Instagram, and kind of like mental health awareness accounts. And a lot of them were saying like the studies and the clinical trials that they're actually doing throughout America and trying to test people that have CPTSD with either acid or with, which is a little intense for me, but shrooms, you know what I mean? Like something that's a little bit more natural and isn't frying your brain. Like that feels a little bit more organic, you know, kind of reminds me of, even though it's a little bit more intense than weed, you know, it reminds me of, okay, grows in the ground, cool with it. You know what I mean? No chemicals, let's do this shit. But that was a huge thing for me, was trying to do microdosing and seeing the effects. And I noticed how much it helped with my anxiety and being okay and comfortable in your own skin. You know what I mean? Like what we were talking about, and being a loser and being like insecure and like not trying things.
It allows you to love on yourself.
Yeah, I just was kind of like, you know what? Like anything that made me uncomfortable was gone. You know, because you can't have anything uncomfortable when you're shrooming. So
can I ask you a question then? Because I like to bounce these conversations, because very, you know, well, let me start here. For one, I'm proud of you, America. I'm so proud of you. You know, you're becoming so emotionally mature. I'm proud of you.
Right?
You know, but
we're
yes,
doing psychedelics to take care of our problems.
And who would have thought?
Who would have thought? Not me.
I certainly didn't either. You know, actually, you know, I can't even tell you how I got introduced to the idea. But when I did, I became inquisitive like you.
Yeah.
And I started listening to, his name is Terrence McKenna.
Okay.
He is like the psychedelic guru.
Okay.
And he kind of gives you all of what goes on, the nuances, what you deal with, where it takes you, how it affects your mind, and just the different things, and how he broke it down. It was so intriguing. Okay. But I still have my reservations.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I mean, like, I especially like where I come from, like anything outside of like cannabis or alcohol, like you're a drug addict, you know, like
Mormon race.
You're on fucking drugs,
yes,
you know what I'm saying?
I was very much like, what are you doing now, Miranda? And I'm
right.
like, just smoking weed, Mom, leave me alone.
Right.
Just dope.
But it's so crazy how we've evolved, because now my mom is like, you know, she's like, oh my God, this is so strong. I'm like, what do you mean? I go in her room, she has a vape pen with Gorilla Glue cartridge on the inside. I said, you? What?
She not smoked before? Or
we might have to edit that. I don't know if my mom wants the world to know that. But
airing out Mom's 420 business.
Right. Love you, Mom. Never mind. But yeah, so, you know, it got me interested, but then I had to get more background information about it. Then I started, one of my, close friends, he was doing it and I had no idea. So I'm like, how does it make you feel? And started asking questions.
Yeah.
At a certain point, he was like, you know what? You tell me. And I was just like, it felt like that old Dare commercial from back in the 90s where they hand you the drugs and shit. Like, this is a crossword. This is the crossword of my life.
Where'd you learn how to do these drugs?
Right,
I learned
right.
them from you, Dad. I learned them from you.
With the frying pan and the egg and shit in it.
This is your brain
On drugs, yes.
All that comes to mind. Like,
Man,
shit.
Miranda, I'm telling you, I was sitting there like, I was under pressure. I was like, oh my God. But I'm just, with that, I'm also with the Gemini in me, I have a fearlessness about me as well, where it's like, fuck it, what's the worst that can happen?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, what's the worst that can happen? So I sat with it for a while. I didn't try it. I just had it, in my pocket, wherever I kept it.
And this is shrooms we're talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
So one day, something told me, is like, just go for it. Because I was listening to all the spiritual benefits that comes with it, the cognitive benefits that comes along with it, just all the myriad of benefits that comes along with the psychedelics.
Yeah.
And I chewed them shits up.
And just ate them straight, or you ate them with other food? I love them in PB&Js.
The first time I did it, I had it, I chewed them up with an orange. So,
okay.
Yeah, so I
the citrus.
Yeah, because the citrus, it actually it
enhances.
But see, the thing
feeling,
is,
right, with the orange juice?
I was on some Jimi Hendrix shit though, and I didn't even know it. No, let me tell you, because the citrus, it intensifies the effect.
I was just gonna say.
But this was my first time.
Oh.
So out the gate.
So this is your first time. How long ago was this?
About a year ago.
Okay.
So
in quarantine.
Well, no, 2 years ago. Sorry. So 2 years ago. Sorry. So I'm sitting there, I'm just like, oh, I don't feel anything. This is like, you sure this works? I'm thinking like he's putting on now. Out of nowhere.
What was the first thing you noticed that was different?
I started noticing the shadows of the room.
Yeah.
Like the shadows became more prominent to me.
Yeah.
Like the things that it's almost like this, the best way I can describe it is when you're in the psychedelic state, that's what I like to call it. When you're in the state, it allows you, it's almost like a picture, right? When you look at a drawing, you see all of...
I love the way that you say that, by the way. A drawing.
A drawing. I'm from the East Coast, I'm sorry.
So good. No,
I
love it.
But...
I love it when people pronounce words a certain way. It just gets me going.
Me too. Like Bostonians, My car. My car keys, My car keys. You mean like khakis or your car keys, like which one are you talking about? But it's like a picture, right? When we look at a picture, we always see the reds, the blues, the whatever, but when you're in the state, you see the negative.
Okay.
So you see all the backdrop of what makes everything come together.
The things that you normally wouldn't notice.
The inner mechanics of things you notice.
Yeah.
All the little nuances, all the little details, everything, you pay attention to every single thing. And that's when I knew it was working.
Yeah.
However, it was a good time. I smoked. It was cool. The second time I went up a dose because I read that when you get to a certain gram intake, that there's different spiritual blockages that you can unlock by increasing the dose.
Yeah.
So I wanted to see what was up, and honestly, I'm so glad that I did. Making a long story short, I'm so glad that I did, Miranda, because it helped me to deal with a lot. I unpacked a lot of emotional trauma. Things that I've been carrying around for a long time. I didn't even know I was carrying around. Things that were holding me back in my life that I didn't even know were things that were hindering me, like emotional things, mental things. It was updating my iOS, like internally though, that. Like literally like the corroded files were getting deleted.
Yeah.
Things, unsavory aspects of my character, I was
defragmenting.
It was fragmenting, like my whole reality was shattered and I was questioning everything about myself and I didn't like a lot of things. I was actually disgusted.
I'm gonna hit you with a question now.
Go ahead.
How do you know that you're working on your trauma and yourself? And how do you know that you've worked on it?
based on how you respond to
Future triggers.
triggers. Thank you. Triggers. How you respond to your triggers. Like how I know that I have found elevation is because in younger years I had pretty bad anger. I didn't deal with my anger correctly.
Your anger response was
My
just-
anger response was just bad, you
Yeah.
know, like it was very bad, you know. And then I had to get to a point, it allowed me to get to a point where, I found that I was making progress when I would deal with a situation that would have me typically fly off the handle some years ago. I'd be like, oh, wow, you know, I'm sorry to hear that. Or, you know, like it not nonchalant, but it was allowing me to choose what emotion I wanted to feel.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm
in control of your
I'm in
emotions.
control of my vessel at this time now.
Yes.
See, years ago, like, and let me ask you this: when you are in this state, do you feel like you're actually yourself?
Oh man.
Like,
Okay,
it
so
feels like you are finally who you are.
the ego's removed. I love the line "Star of the ego, feed the soul," and I feel like that's sometimes with what happens when you do psychedelics. My first experience, a little off topic, but in the realm of psychedelics, is it DMT?
I'm interested, but yeah.
Oh man, I thought it was the scariest thing in the world, and then I was just like, I think
Is
like
it more
you said,
intense than shrooms?
Holy fuck! There's the spectrum of intense goes from like 0 to like 100.
So you saw the matrix coding and all of that?
Oh, bro! Like no. Okay, so if you looked at this light right here, or just in these corners, which I'm sure if I did DMT, these would start coming out in spikes, like these from the roof. Everything looked geometric, and everything was in a very Hindu, Indian, very religious,
like sacred geometry.
Yes, the woman with the 1,000 arms. You know what
The
I mean?
Krishna, I believe.
I forget what it's
yeah,
called.
I don't want to. I don't want to offend nobody.
But you know what I mean. Where it's an Indian just
goddess.
Goddess, yes, and she's just has 1,000 arms, and I just saw that everywhere. And
So
I was
things
just
would trail.
Yeah, things would trail, and it came from light and light sources, and I just kept feeling this man, we aren't shit feeling. Like, we're nothing. Like, we're just this tiny. I just felt like a very big removal of, self. It just was like, I have no place in life. This is just, you know what I mean? Like,
it was humbling.
It was very humbling. It was very... We're really blessed to even just be here and talking and just being on this planet kind of deal. I was just like...
Agreed. Like, think about how many things had to go right.
Yes. And it just was like, I don't know, it was very overwhelming of just like, man, so this is what life is. You know what I mean? And that sounds really weird because it only lasts for 6 minutes long.
Yeah, but they say it feels so long, though.
But it does. Oh my gosh, it felt like 20 minutes, and I just my friend was sober while me and her fiance were tripping, just so one of us would know what the fuck was going on, and she would be okay to pull me out. And I was just looking around the room and just being like, I can't stop seeing all these geometric shapes coming out.
That's really cool.
It was really cool, and it felt very...
I'm going to have to talk to Miranda after the show so she could be my DMT supplier.
Right. Very spiritual. And it just felt very we aren't shit. I just kept saying that over and over again. We're nothing.
It allows you to see that it's bigger than you.
Yeah, life is so much bigger than us. It's I think is when we get caught up in this rudeness, the problem with people, that's, very overcomplicated term. And we're oversimplifying by saying, problems with people.
Yes.
But when you think about just yourself, and you don't have really respect for other people or respect for life or respect what's come before you or respect for other people's struggles, especially respect for yourself and your struggles that you've been through, and that's how you get empathy for other people. If you didn't have that and that was removed from people, that's, I think, where we get into these problems of selfishness, and we get into the ego, the greed. And if we all had that kind of mindset, I think we'd be a lot better off. But I just don't think people really take the time to really, not saying everybody needs to go out there and do DMT and have these experiences, but
definitely not.
I'm just saying, I respect people that put that aside for a second and are able to communicate and have that feeling, which it's not usually done with language. It's just done by respect. You know what I mean? When the first couple times that I've talked to you, you notice some people are just more willing to talk or have more willing to spend their time with you.
To exchange, yes.
Exactly. Like what I was telling you earlier about like the magic between people. Like you just can't make that up. It's very organic and it's
can't be faked.
no. And that's what I think happens when you get rid of the ego and you get rid of all of these side bullshits and like, how am I going to benefit from
Right,
this
because
life?
the
How
ego
do
is
get
I.
ahead?
The ego is I. It's I. It's I.
Yeah.
I.
Yeah.
Everything is I. How I'm affected, what I feel, what I think. And then when you get into that, when the ego burns away, you go into more of like, how were they affected by this?
Yeah.
Well, if I do this, how would this affect them?
Yeah.
What are other people dealing with at this time? Like it allows you to, it broadens your perspective where it allows you to focus on something bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
So I got a psychedelic question for you then.
Yes.
We call this a planet that we're on, right?
Uh-huh.
But we don't know where it begins or where it ends. We don't know how big this thing is. We don't know how old it is. We don't know how long we've been here. All this stuff is basically hearsay because the history books, as we know, it's full with lies anyway. Like
100%.
it's concocted to the direction that whoever won the war, they wanted their story to be highlighted.
Yeah, Christopher Columbus was a rapist.
Yeah, it's a highlight.
I said it here first.
I fuck with it. She gonna tell it like it is. She on her Aries shit.
High Aries energy right here.
Big Aries, big dick Aries energy in the house. But the question is, we also as human beings, because that's some. The brain and the mind, the man, all of that, we have a way of creating terminologies for things that we don't understand so that we can feel comfortable with not knowing things.
Yes.
It's like we try to take God and put him into a box so that we can understand the magnitude of this thing.
Yeah.
You can never understand the magnitude of the creators, the engine, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
Whatever started all it is, you can never understand it.
No.
It's like you being an app, understanding the iPhone, how it works. Mm-hmm. You're an app. You're never going to understand the functionality of the iPhone because the iPhone created you.
Yeah.
So anyways, what I'm getting at is, in that same vein, as we know, our cells are alive. Our molecules are alive. Our DNA is alive. You ever heard the term as above, so below?
Yes. Love it.
So sometimes I ask myself, right, what if we are cells? What if we are living organisms inside of a large organism?
Well, yeah. I think that's what we're doing.
But no, I'm saying like not in a, like, you ever like the Osmosis Jones kind of thing. Like we are a part of a bigger thing, but we are inside of it.
Well, yes, I think it's very much with Earth and everything, everybody wants to do which came first, the chicken or the egg. Mm-hmm. What if the chicken and the egg are necessary for each other?
What if they came at the same time?
Yeah, I know that's obviously we're never going to find a solution for that question. But I mean, what if we're so dependent, and I think this is the case, I'm not a scientist and I really don't know that much, but what if we are so dependent on the Earth and the Earth is so dependent on us? I know a lot of people are going to argue with that, with how much damage we've done to our ecosystem with, global warming and everything, which has taken a backseat to COVID. Let's talk about that later. But
Right.
That's like completely disappeared off of our realm in the last year.
Yeah, and surprisingly, people are not that concerned about children at the border anymore either.
No. People have lost their ability to care about a lot of things in the last year. It's weird how things are shuffling in and out.
The desensitization.
100%. But yeah, I just.
So ultimately, my question, what I'm ultimately getting at is.
That's a good question.
We don't understand what we are, really. We don't really fully understand what we are. Like,
yeah.
For example, I have the strong disposition that human beings have a very, we are an amalgamative species. Like everything that's in this reality, there's a part of it in us. So for example, nickel, copper, palladium, gold, all that's in your body. Like we have elements, we have minerals, we have all these different things in our bodies. Then you think about it, you're fire, earth, air, and water. You are every element in one. Think about that. And you're running on electricity. So then you're robotic in some ways. Then you have, we're hatched from eggs. So then we're reptilian in some ways. Because the only thing that hatch from eggs are reptiles.
Yeah.
And the majority of everything that evolved on this planet evolved from reptiles.
Yeah, it's really weird. Like, again, with the two-dimensional thing, everything's so complicated. I don't think that there's one, like you said, how we don't know what we came from. I don't think there's really one answer for anything. And we'd be ignorant to say what the truth is. You know what I mean? I think everybody wants to know. I'm surprised how many people don't try to research what happens to you after you die. Like, like, why haven't we gotten into more of, like, science and, like, we're going to, I don't know how they do it, but, like, we're going to investigate what happens to the brain after you die and the wavelengths and, like, what do you see after you die? And is that actually what you see in your mind, or is your mind doing a chemical releasing and that's what you're experiencing?
Well, they're alleging that they can clone you and transfer your consciousness. Yes, this is what is being worked on now. Like, they're trying to measure the soul. Like, they're trying to. We're moving into some very different times.
Yeah, that's overwhelming.
Extremely, because we're moving into. But see, at the same time, though, it's like if you do completely just be fearful of it and don't pursue that, then what is any different than the whole, like, reefer madness thing from, like, the 70s or whatnot, like the propaganda, like, oh, don't go after anything that's unknown, stay away from everything that's unknown.
Yeah.
But then again, some things you don't want to tamper with.
Yeah.
Some things, once it's like opening Pandora's box.
Yeah.
And it's one of like, consciousness is one of those things that it's so beyond our understanding that it's pretty worrisome to think that, there are people right now who are trying to recreate life in their own image now.
Yeah.
So it's like, in a sense, it's like the things that we're dealing with right now, look at it in a broad perspective. Human beings are becoming obsolete. Forget romance is obsolete. Human beings are becoming obsolete.
Well, if they're making meat aren't they, like, making meat from DNA, like multiplying DNA to make fake meat, but it's actually real meat, but it's made from stem cells. Have you seen this?
So that's cloned food.
Yeah, cloned food. So it's like nothing's dying, but it's still meat. Like, it still came from an animal. It's like the weirdest thing in the world to me. Like, I don't know how I feel about that, because technically it's animal cruelty free, but then again, it's not really cruelty free if we're still cloning animals' meat and
Right.
They're still alive, but we're still keeping them captive.
And have leather wallets in our pockets.
Yes, exactly. So we're not, I think we're almost kind of like going around the problem. You know
like
what
I say all the time, our issue is not the killing, it's the fact that we don't want to see it.
Yeah.
It's not that. It's not the issue.
We don't want to see
because
the
we
problem.
talk about gun violence and this, that, and the third, and the atrocities that are going on in other countries. However, our own government right now is in places dropping explosives on children.
Yeah.
And because you can't see it, it doesn't keep you up at night.
Yeah.
So
and just because your party won, you don't think it's happening
there you
anymore.
go. So how outraged are you really?
Yeah.
How outraged are you really?
It sucks because me, as somebody that wanted, obviously, Trump to be out of office, and you have somebody that gets into office like Biden, not really anybody wanted, let's be real, but was the default.
He was just a lesser
like,
of the two evils.
Yes, exactly. I mean, lesser than, of course, Hillary Clinton in 2016, but just okay, get anybody in there that's not going to be Trump. So we have that come into play. And then I saw this great meme, and it had every single last 4 presidents logo on the missile missile strike, airplane, and it just had a different president for each one, and it just makes such perfect sense. Everybody wants to fight for their guy and who they think is right, and at the end of the day, we're all just killing children and dropping bombs and people and civilians, like you said, in other countries, kind of like what we did with America, Christopher Columbus and all this shit. And it, like you said, how outraged are you really if we're just doing the same shit and calling it under a new government and saying, well, it's Biden, it's a time for change, or, you know, all whatever slogan that they had this year. It sucks. I hate that you want to advocate for what's right and like doing the underdog.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You want to do what's right and kind of fight for your moral compass and what you know to be right and who you think is going to fight for not just yourself but every single group and impoverished groups or in fringe groups. And I think that's what a lot of people thought that they were doing, but then they turn their head when they see something they don't like about that party. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
I think we're all guilty of it.
Because people are following out of more of emotional, an emotional connection, as opposed to, it's like all the time people say, you know, like listen to the message, not so much the messenger.
100%.
You know, and that was the issue with Trump. Like, I mean, yes, he had a lot of things that he said that was crazy. Like, I mean, off the wall things that he did that was crazy and off the wall.
Yeah.
You know, however, you know, when he was in the chair, Korea wasn't calling over and saying, we don't respect you. I suggest you shut up and be quiet for the next 4 years or we're going to come over there and blow you up because we don't even acknowledge you as the president. You know, it's like we were so gung-ho on getting someone who was docile to us, but does that really work when we're living in a world full of, I mean, because as human, once again, we talk about the human experience. We have to stop disacknowledging that we have very animalistic qualities about ourselves. Mm-hmm. You know, like when an animal's out in the jungle, it's all about like maintaining that presence.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're gonna get chewed up.
Yeah.
And now we're in a place where the world thinks that we have weak leadership.
Yeah.
That's not good for us from the outside threats. You know, so it's so much, and I just try to stray away from the political stuff because it became like a gang thing now. Like, you know, people, oh, you know, you voted for this one, I can't talk to you anymore. You know, and I'm just like, this is not what it's about.
I have to say, I'm guilty of that. I got into that. I feel like I talked about it with my friend Ruben the other day, and I said,
I like the honesty. That's what's up.
No, I have to. You know what I mean? I think the only person that holds you accountable is you, and it's kind of dumb.
Only as sick as your secrets.
You know, yeah, and you can't keep nodding your head and going, "Yeah, man, that's right," and knowing that you've done that yourself. There are a few times when I saw people that were so okay with what was going on with George Floyd and using the narrative, like my family, my mom said, "Well, what about his arrest he's had before?" And, you know, when you get into something like that, you already know.
How does that correlate?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You know what you're dealing with when those questions come up.
Correct. Because at the root of it, you know what the issue is.
You know what the issue is. So when I feel like I haven't had to make those huge decisions about my life because I am white and because of my place of privilege. So if I have other people that look like me and are making those kind of statements, I feel like it is now my place that I have to say something. The reason I think we've gotten to this place of complacency, of being okay with watching people just get murdered in the street and just like, okay, business is normal, is because people don't say anything. And thank God we have phones and people recording things now.
Correct.
Because you can't deny what's inherently true in a video. Like I think watching that Philandro Castile video on Facebook Live,
and watching him die on camera.
I watched it live on Facebook when it happened, and it was just like, the fuck is this? Like, it was just a trip.
But now, and I'm glad you gave me your account of it. You know, as being a white woman.
Yeah.
But and as a man of color, my side of it is, I don't even want to see it anymore, because it carries a certain energy with it where it keeps you in that trauma and that trauma mentality.
Yeah.
You know, like I was having a conversation with someone, and I like to speak with people who are forward thinking. You know, there's no emotion. Like, I like the people who can detach the emotion from the logic.
Yeah.
Let's just have a logical conversation. The gentleman was saying something to the effect of, you know, I've met so many successful black people in my life and this and the third. And he was just like, however, you know, I feel that some, they allow what they dealt with to hinder them in their current lives as to preventing them to succeed. And I said, you know, in some capacities, you're correct.
Yeah.
However, when you have a slave movie that comes out every year, when you have reminders every couple of months, of police who are killing, your own kind, it doesn't allow one who is not mentally strong and has mental grounding to see above that situation.
It's almost like we're keeping the narrative of them as victims.
You're keeping these people victims.
100%.
Because you're victimizing them.
It's like almost like a Jim Crow emotional conquest.
The Holocaust happened so long ago. If you bring it up today, it's still a touchy subject.
Yeah, I mean, well, when you think about it, it wasn't that long ago, 1930s.
So think about this. Slavery wasn't that long ago either then.
No, it wasn't. I think Frederick Douglass was fighting for racial equality for voters back when, 1846. Shit was going on back then. I think I did a thing over this in quarantine. I looked it up. Asian Americans weren't allowed to vote until the 90s or the 80s. And then in the 60s, finally is when we got the Racial Equality Act voted in by Martin Luther King with him and Lyndon B. Johnson. So it's only been the last 60 years that black men have been able to vote. It's only been the last 40 years that Asian Americans have been able to vote. Like, when you think about it in that terms, we haven't gotten that far.
Not really.
Not far at all. And when, like you said, when we have these keeping people like the victims in terminology and emotionally speaking by, like you said, it's just constant and it's hit you over the head, this is going on, problems. Like you said, with always these 12 Years a Slave movies coming out, Django Unchained, it makes you feel like, are we giving empowerment or are we keeping somebody in place?
And then think about this exactly, and then think about this. And after this, we're gonna go ahead and pay some bills, But think about it like this, right? How could it not be a ploy to keep a group of people in place? Because human beings have been walking this earth for hundreds, thousands, millions of years, right?
Yeah.
Why are you not giving any other historical accounts of those people?
Yeah.
What they've done as far as the construction of the modern medicines and the sciences and this and that. Why aren't you giving the other aspects of what these people have done or what they've experienced? Mm-hmm. When you're only giving a one-sided perspective of you're a slave, you've always been a slave, you're going to always be one, this is what you dealt with, everything is trauma, whoop, crying and sadness. At what point do you expect someone to rise above that?
Yeah.
So it takes a very strong person to recognize what is actually going on and then, work to counter that, and it's yeah. Anyways, though, I try to stray away from those type of subjects, but it's the reality of our reality.
Yeah.
And I feel like as long as people make it such a touchy thing where they don't even want to talk about it, then there's no way that we can move forward with an understanding. Yeah. Because my friends of today, they're not, they don't feel like their grandparents do.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
They don't feel like their grandparents do, and because they don't, our relationship is different. So what am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to be saying, okay, well, screw every single white person because of what your grandparents did. It's like, then I wouldn't have certain relationships and friendships that I have right now. Yeah. So it's just like, we have to get to a level of understanding. We have to get to a level of putting that trauma behind us. And just being honest with what we're dealing with, Yeah.
I don't really know the right way to hold people accountable.
I don't either.
Have that kind of rhetoric, and I don't really know what the best way is to go about it. Like,
it's easier said than done.
Yeah, it's easy to listen to people and go, man, I should have said something. But then when you say something, you go, oh man, I probably shouldn't have said something. Now I have a rift with my friend. Who knows what the right way is? I think you just do with what you think is best in the moment.
I want to end it on this note. What I will say is I don't think there's any right way or wrong way or a best way or worst way.
Yeah.
But just from speaking one culture to another, right? For all of my non-African American friends, if you support us and you believe that what is going on is incorrect, then like you said, that was very, very powerful, because that shows that, see, it's very easy to agree with me behind closed doors, but then when you get out there in public, I'm quiet now.
Yeah.
But see, when you're quiet, that
People
means
are very loud at a computer.
There you go.
But when they go out there, they're
But quiet is agreement.
Yes.
So if you don't speak up and stand up for what you feel is incorrect, then you are a part of the problem.
Silence is violence.
Silence is violence. So for all of my friends, so what you said, just to address that, that's where we begin. Address the the disrespect. Address the
rhetoric.
The rhetoric. Address all of those things that you know are incorrect, that you are not okay with. Because if you're not okay with it, you showing your stance on it is by standing up.
Yeah.
But I just want to say that was our show today. My camera guy is pretty hungry right now. He's like foaming at the mouth right now, and I gotta blame it on somebody, But thank you so much, Miranda.
It's my pleasure.
It was definitely a pleasure having you on. It's not the last time.
No,
if you got some time, come on and co-host with me for sometimes.
I'd love to.
The one word I can describe that podcast that we just had: refreshing. Miranda, thank you so much for stopping in. We covered so many topics that was unexpected, because as we intended this podcast to be, it was supposed to be about romance, and then we turned it into so many different things. However, I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of people who could benefit from some of those things that we spoke on today. Thank you so much for your viewership in advance. Miranda will be stopping in again. Check us out on Anchor FM. Run the tape back. Make sure you like, follow, and subscribe first. And then check us out on Anchor FM, Apple, SoundCloud, Spotify, and all the major streaming platforms, YouTube. You can also follow me on Instagram, handle Raisin Brands. Check us out on every Wednesday. Peace. Thank you so much. It's been a blessing. Out.
The real you is not a puppet which life pushes around. The real deep down you is the whole universe.